Change is one of those things that are so underratedly scary. For so many people, they think of sharks, they think of scorpions, they might think about going on on a plane, whatever it might be, but they don't realize that sometimes when our worlds shift, whether we choose to or whether we don't choose to, that could be one of the scariest areas of somebody's life. And what we have to understand is that there's different frameworks around what it is we need to be doing, how it is that we need to be understanding change in terms of our own personal growth. How does it we can become somebody from these moments of change to allow ourselves to adapt and thrive during these times. So today we're going to break down change. We're going to break it down into two specific topics. And then we're going to talk about some practical tips that we can start working on now, regardless of what's happening later on with our lives, that we'll be able to work on. So when it comes to change, we have to realize that there's the change that we sort of choose to change, and then there's the change that is forced upon us, that you don't really want to put yourself in there, and then all of a sudden something happens. Maybe it's in the family, there's some other crisis in the world, whatever it might be. And let's just jump into the choice of change. So if somebody has something that they want to be working on, they want to do some change. So maybe it's they want to start to get on a diet, or maybe they want to just be able to start working on their finances, or they want to start dating or something like that. So there's a change that is going on. What we have to realize as humans, we like things to just be steady. We like to understand how things are going to be. And the more we can anticipate certain things that are going to happen in our life, then the easier life's going to be. And one of the things that I think people talk about, what I talk about in regards to like the schooling system, is that throughout our lives till we're graduated with college, there's the system's there. And the part that people don't get is that once you leave college, there's no system anymore, and you have to create the life that you want. Yeah, people could become, elongate their college degrees in law and in doctorate and even get those jobs. But even after those first jobs, things like shift and things change. Our priorities change. There's so many things that are going on differently. And what we have to understand is that going through that change is something that is really important for ourselves. But also we have to realize that it could be so demoralizing, thinking that, oh my gosh, I get everything figured out. And then you get like thrown into the real world and you're like, what do I do next? And I remember like one of the first times I had zero responsibility. I was like out there and I was just like, what do I do? I graduated college and I was like, I could do whatever I want. And like on the one hand, it was like freeing. On the other hand, I was like, after like a couple of days, weeks, it was like petrifying because nobody's gonna be on top of me. Like it's my responsibility to then now go do whatever it is I wanted productively. And when you're like in your young 20s and you're doing that stuff like that's just not productive, you feel like garbage. And I think as people move on with their life, they continue to feel like garbage also. And then they get forced into some job that they don't want to be doing. And then all of a sudden, then like things are even worse than it is than they would have chosen. But I think a lot of times what happens with chosen change is that we try to mentally prepare ourselves. Right? We get into the zone. I'm going to get on a diet. I'm going to be ready to get on a diet. I'm not going to eat any of this healthy food. I'm going to be able to go. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to be able to, do whatever it is I need to be doing in order to live this new lifestyle that I want, this change that I want. And what's interesting is that usually when we make those changes, we're usually pumped up. We're usually excited. The thing is, life's not like that. And there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. So even if you're not like totally up, but you're like more positive than negative, so it's going to be a lot easier to be doing things. But when your kid wakes you up in the middle of the night and you didn't sleep and then you're really tired the next day and like you're just like not in the mood and you're starving and you go into the freezer and you see some ice cream there. So it's a lot easier to like break your diet because it's just there and like you don't care. So what we have to realize is that so many times when it comes to the change that we're doing, it's totally different than what is really necessary. And we have to realize that if we really want to change, it's not going to be easy. And there are going to be those times. And what's crazy is we don't even know what those times look like. That's the scary part. For so many people, they try to figure out, they try to create this lifestyle. What we have to realize is that that's not the case. I would say like 90% of the time, 95% of the time. Unless you've been in through a similar path that has done something like that before, like you're not going to be able to really expect what's going to happen. So what are we supposed to do about that? Because at the end of the day, like if we know it's going to be hard, but we don't know what hard really means, how is it that we're supposed to frame that? Right? It's all a frame. How are we going to shift our mindset to that? And then for me personally, I know it's going to be tough. I don't even know what tough really means in this situation. And yet I still have to just do it. And what's interesting is that we have to find the patterns. And I know for me personally, whenever I start to do something new, if I want to start waking up earlier, if I want to get on a diet, if I want to I don't know, if I want to start doing, I don't know, a new business idea. I know that in the beginning, it's extremely exciting. I'm doing it. I'm pumped up. I'm inspired. I'm motivated. And then I always know around day 4 or 5, like something goes wrong. And I'm like, wait a second, do I really want to be doing this? Is it something I really want to commit to? And then I start questioning everything. And then most of the times, what ends up happening is I end up like getting one more day in that's good. And then like another thing goes wrong. And then it's like 2 days off. And then a good day. And then like 3 days off. And then like I'm done. And what I realized about myself is like that happens. That's the pattern. So what we have to understand is like, what's your pattern? How many times have you had something excited that you were pumped up about? And if you're like an entrepreneur, this probably happens to you like every other day. Like you're so excited about a specific idea. And what we have to understand is like, no, I have to just be able to stay focused on what it is that I'm doing. Like that's the thing that I'm going to be focusing on. And that's the thing that I'm going to be able to, succeed at. And we have to realize that if we want to be able to do something like this, if we want to be able to have an opportunity to be able to change something proactively in our life and choose that change, we have to be ready for the difficult times. And we don't even know what difficult really means. And one of the things that I start doing on those days 4 or 5 when I start to like not feel it is I just don't think. I just know I just have to react. I just have to be able to take the action. Because somebody who's especially as emotional as I am, right? Once I get emotional, once I get into my head, like I'm done. And I realized that I gotta get snap out of it. I gotta get out of that mindset. I need to just stay focused. I need to be able to just stay on it, part with what it is that I'm doing, and allow myself to just see the things that I want. And I think for so many of us, we want to be committed. We want to be able to do certain things, but it's so difficult to stay that commitment when the going gets tough. And that's the change part that is really difficult. And I think for so many people also, it's like the beginning, the before, you can prepare yourselves. You can allow yourselves to see that success. But then what ends up happening is you have the after. You have the reality of what's going on there. And I think for us, if we can learn that as quickly as possible, and how it is that we're supposed to make that change, how it is that we're supposed to do what it is that we're supposed to be doing, that can make all the difference. So ask yourself, what is it that you want to be doing? How is it that you're going to set yourself up for change? Because once you set yourself up for change, then you have the ability to do new things in your life. Right? You have the ability to make things happen in your life. And for so many of us, it's so difficult because we don't even know what is difficult. We don't even know what is hard. We don't even know what the stumbling blocks are going to be. Like, it's one thing if you know, oh, I know on day 15, like that's going to happen. I know on day 30, that's going to happen. But it's like, you have no idea. And even if you listen to other people's stories, yours is going to be totally different. And what we have to try to do is we have to try to build ourselves up. Who is it that we're going to become? How can we become more resilient? We're going to talk about it in just a little bit. The next type of change that I think a lot of people don't realize is the change of being forced to change. And this might happen because there's like an economic crash, you get fired from your job. It could be, unfortunately, you have a bad breakup, or God forbid somebody has like a loss in a family, and then you're forced to change. And with that type of change, there's no real control over it. I mean, you're not choosing to be in the situation, and now like your life is just turned over. And what we have to realize is that we have to try to figure out what it is we can be doing. And it's weird, but I know for me, during those most challenging times, I've had the most growth because I didn't have a choice to make that growth, right? I didn't have a choice to say, yeah, I'm just gonna take a day off on this. Like, no, you can't do that. And I was recently speaking to a friend of mine who his family's going through something, and a family member of his is going through something, and he was having a tough time just relating and understanding it. And he's like, you can't just take off. Like, you got a family, you got like responsibility. And I think for him, it was really, really tough to try to, because he was taking like more work on now while he's already like overloaded. And what was interesting is that we all need to try to figure out what that thing is. What is it that we can start to do? How is it that we can make it happen? And I think if we had this ability to start to make that change, if we had the ability to start to do certain things in our lives, that could be something that could start to shift so much in our lives. And what we have to realize is like during those times, that is when the growth is going to happen. And I know you don't want to hear it. You're like, I don't want to be growing now. I just want to have a normal life right now, Bennett. I don't want to be having to be forced through this. But being a religious person, I'm a big believer like things are happening to us for a reason. And we have a choice to gain from it and learn from it, or let it learn and change us for not the greatest way. And if we had that ability to really take those things, then guess what? Then whenever something does happen, and not say like we're not allowed to have those downtimes, and I'm not going to say, you know what, like you got to suck it up every single time. But there's a certain point where it's like, okay, it's time. We have to pick ourselves up. We got to move forward. We're done the mourning period. Now we got to move forward. Even in Judaism, we have different levels of mourning when somebody loses somebody, depending on the person, and then even depending on the situation. But there's like 7 days of intense mourning, then 30 days, then 11 months. But each one is supposed to like wean you off a little bit, and it's tough, man. It's really, really hard. But we have to realize is like that's the thing that's going to help us grow, because the most growth is usually going to be happening during that time. So what are certain things that we can start to do to prepare ourselves? Because in life, there are going to be certain choices that we're going to want to be proactive about, and then some of them we're going to have to be reactive about. So what is it that we can do right now, whether things are going on or whether things are not going on, in order to just set ourselves up? We want to be able to put ourselves in a situation to allow ourselves to see the success of one. So what is it we're supposed to do? So the first thing that we want to really be able to do is, so number one, we got to get a support team. We got to get a bunch of people around us who are interested in looking to be able to go, that will be interested in looking to go to be able to help us out. And I know for me personally, I have different people, different mentors of mine, who some of them I speak to very frequently, and some of them I might speak to once a year. But it's understood that when those relationships are like, it's understood that those relationships are like how they're supposed to be. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think honestly, it's a beautiful thing that I know if like I'm in a specific, if I'm getting hit pretty hard in a specific thing, then somebody else wants to come over and like, if I need to go over to ask somebody something, I have somebody that I can go over to ask. And I'm so lucky that I have so many people in my life that I have as support. And different people at different stages of their life, different people I go through my parenting stuff, different people I go through my business stuff, different people just like my own like mental health and like self-awareness. And what's interesting is that you really need those people. Like if I didn't have those people in my life, like I have no idea. I mean, I'm extremely lucky to even have my wife who's like that, somebody I trust, somebody whose opinion I really value. But what we need to try to figure out is like, what is it that we're going to do for ourselves? How is it that we're going to be able to put ourselves out there? How is it that we're going to make ourselves become the people that we want to become? And I think if we could start to understand that, then I really, really, really believe that that's like massive, because when the tough going goes tough, like we'll have the ability to be able to bounce out of it a lot quicker. We'll have the ability to get that guidance from the people who, whether they have the same experience or whether they know other people who've been through that experience, will be able to help, just because like you can't do it by yourself. Nobody does it by themselves. You need somebody. You need a group of people who are going to be able to help pull you up. And that's what we want to really be able to do. So what is it that you're doing? How is it that we're going to allow ourselves to become the type of person that we want to become? So that is the first part of just getting that support team, getting that cast of people around you to be able to help you be able to move forward through that. The second part is a shift in our mindset. And we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but we have to understand that when we're going through this growing period, we're growing, man. Like that is us being tough. Like that is us taking things to the next level. That is us looking to move forward and really to be able to take the action to become somebody. Like that is the inner growth. That is the discomfort of us working out in the gym, in the mental gym of our minds, looking to build those muscles. We want to be able to do certain things, but you have to like be at the caliber to do those things. And guess what? When you go through those times, that's how you're growing. Right? When I invested in my real estate properties and I lost money on them, like I could look at that as a big failure and how I should never do this again. And this is like the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Or I could say, okay, like, this is me growing right now. This is me expanding right now. I'm going to be learning a lesson, a very expensive lesson right now. And what we have to realize is that we have to be able to take those things on us to be able to move forward and to really make things happen. And I think for so many people, they're not looking at it as growth. And when you're in it, it's very tough to see. It's very tough to see. But I think on the other hand, like when you are able to look back at it, that could be something that could shift so much. So the questions we need to ask ourselves, like, what are you looking to do? How are you going to be able to take advantage of the thing you're looking to take advantage of? How are you going to be able to take that thing that you're going through, put meaning to it, to say, hey, what am I getting out of this? Who am I becoming from this? As Jim Rohn loves to talk about, it's not about what you're getting, it's about who you are becoming. Who are you becoming in this moment? Because tough times are going to happen. Growth is going to happen. And it's really your perspective to see if it's going to take you to the next level or if it's going to hold you back 2 or 3. And that is our choice. And it's terrible and it stings. And like, just like you're doing your 100, push up, like you can't get yourself up, but guess what? that's when the most growth happens. And if we could look at it as us expanding, and if it's not for you, it's for somebody that you're going to be able to help. That's one of the things that I always go to. If I'm going through something tough that I really don't want to do, it's not about me. It's about my kid who I want to be able to teach this lesson to. It's about that other person that I want to share this idea. It's about this podcast that I want to be able to put something out there. We all need to figure that out for ourselves. And if we don't understand that, if we don't allow ourselves to do it, then what's going to happen? We're just going to be so stuck. It's really, really important to be able to move forward with that. And the last thing that I would share with you regarding these changes that we have is that we have to practice this skill of resilience. You know, I think for so many people, they don't necessarily have, they don't put themselves in the situation enough. So when the thing gets uncomfortable, then they're just really uncomfortable. What we have to realize is like, no, if we want things to change, if we want to grow, like we have to constantly grow, because somebody who's able to, who's able to handle, 50 pounds is going to be able to handle 30 pounds. So if you're putting yourself in a situation where you can handle 50 pounds, and when 30 pounds happens, like it's not going to be a big deal, right? If you run a company that has, that does, $10 million in sales a year, that's really nice. But what we also have to realize is that then you'll be able to handle a company that does like $5 million a year. Right. And if we're not putting ourselves out there, we're not going to be able to constantly look at that growth. And that's something that we have to try to figure out. So what is it that we're looking to do? Where is it that we're looking to put ourselves out there for? And if we could start to make these changes and really focus on both the change that is going to be proactive, the change is going to be reactive, and recognize that we're becoming somebody, we're growing from that, that's going to be something that can be so powerful. So let me know what questions you have down below. If anybody has any specific questions, feel free to DM me, reach out. We're on YouTube. We are on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn and on Facebook and all the good stuff. Feel free to reach out. Have a great night. Peace out.